Regenerative agriculture describes a system of farming principles and practices that go beyond sustainable agriculture and have regenerative outcomes, like increasing biodiversity, enriching soils, improving watersheds, and enhancing ecosystem services.
What regenerative agriculture is definitely going beyond what's sustainable, because sustainable means indeed sustaining something, so not doing harm mainly. With regeneration, we definitely go beyond that. We do net positive impact to the environment and not only. So that's, I would say, the main thing that differentiates it from, again, sustainable agriculture, which we heard it a lot, and sustainable is quite a buzzword, and we're pretty much done with it, I would say. It's pretty old-fashioned. That's what I mean with regenerative, is doing good. So living what we've been used better than how we found it. Of course, words change and evolve, and they also have sort of an expiring date and a shelf life, let's say. And sustainable, it's been used too much for sure. We depleted a lot of our resources already, so what do we want to sustain if that's not there anymore? You know what I mean? We have to rebuild our soils, not keep them poor as we made them.
In practice, regenerative agriculture means a focus on capturing carbon in the soil and in above-ground biomass to reverse the global trend of CO2 emission.
One of the key points of regenerative agriculture is building up the soil again, so the topsoil, so organic matter. And this can, of course, be translated into a lot of different practices, all of which stock carbon in the soil, which is incredibly important nowadays for just the amount of CO2 we have in the air. So the potential for tackling climate change of regenerative agriculture is really interesting. Some practices like agroforestry, switching to perennial crops, cover crops, no tillage, holistic grazing, all these practices that keep the soil covered, avoid losing organic matter, retain water, can be grouped under the regenerative agriculture umbrella term.
Other practices that are associated with regenerative agriculture are composting, fostering plant diversity on a farm, and integrating livestock and cropping systems. Using more perennials is supported, however, regenerative agriculture can also apply to annual cropping.
With annual crops, it can be regenerative if you actually do minimum tillage, cover crops, add a lot of organic matter, And that's probably something you can also do with strip cropping.
Many of these practices have already been known to be beneficial, but our approach to soils has mainly been mechanical, to manipulate it. For regenerative agriculture, we need a biological approach, to nurture it. Besides stocking carbon, regenerative agriculture should provide increasing yields and resilience to climate instabilities, like droughts and more rain. It is a broad term that is not so much developed yet in science.
Regenerative agriculture is broad and includes a lot of other things. So it's a good umbrella definition for all these practices or sub-movements that deal with improving the agro-ecosystem, while of course producing abundance of food, abundance of ecosystem services. So from my perspective, regenerative agriculture includes permaculture, includes agroecology, includes a certain kind of organic agriculture. What I call truly regenerative agriculture is still pretty much small scale, so truly diversified, zero tillage, cover soil all the time, So it's hard to point out solid realities that have do big production, sell to maybe wholesalers or so. Because it's not something that a scientist defined in a paper. You can look it up and cite it forever in all the other papers in which you cite him. No, this didn't happen yet.
So, regenerative agriculture is a term that is starting to get used more for certain practices that go beyond sustainable agriculture, but focus on regenerating soils, biodiversity, and other ecosystem services that can be associated with agriculture, but it is not completely defined yet in science. The more the term will be used, the more need there will be for a solid definition. It is also a term that can include practices associated with other terms like agroforestry, food forest, permaculture, and agroecology. Donatella emphasizes that regenerative agriculture is a way of thinking about positive solutions.
It's also a kind of mindset, this regenerative approach. Also because, I mean, there's a lot of negativity and a lot of talking about the problems of the world today. Climate breakdown and you know, pollution, plastic and all the things that we know. But we need to speak the language of solutions. So when I think regenerative is a great start for that.